Earth was at peace, or as much peace as a world of over 10 billion souls could ever achieve. The wars of old had been replaced by tense alliances, and humanity had settled into a fragile equilibrium. The planet's resources were managed through delicate diplomacy, and the diverse nations of Earth had finally found a way to coexist, if not in harmony, then at least without open conflict. But this precarious balance was shattered the day the skies darkened, and the Galactic Empire made its presence known. It started as a rumor, a whisper on the winds of space. Astronomers in remote observatories noticed anomalies at the edge of the solar system, disturbances in the gravitational field, subtle shifts in the positions of stars. At first, these anomalies were dismissed as errors, the kind that had been recorded and corrected 1,000 times before. But as the days passed, the anomalies grew more pronounced, more alarming. Then, without warning, the skies above Earth filled with ships. They were vast, monolithic structures that gleamed like black diamonds against the blue sky, casting long shadows over the cities below. These ships, larger than any human-made vessel, moved with a deliberate, almost ominous grace. Their surfaces were smooth and featureless, without the seams or rivets of human engineering, and they made no sound as they hovered above the world. People across the globe stood in awe, their eyes drawn to the heavens as the first contact was made. The world leaders scrambled to respond. Emergency meetings were held, and old rivalries were temporarily set aside as humanity faced the unknown together. The United Nations became the central hub of communication, and a global broadcast was arranged so that every human on Earth could witness the momentous event. The emissaries of the Galactic Empire descended from their ships in beams of pale light. They were tall, slender beings, their bodies encased in shimmering armor that seemed to ripple like liquid metal. Their faces were obscured by helmets that emitted a soft glow, but their eyes, glowing orbs of pure light, were visible through the visors, exuding an eerie calm. They spoke in a language that no human had ever heard, yet it was instantly understood by all who listened, their words resonating directly in the minds of those present. "We are the emissaries of the Galactic Empire," they announced in unison, their voices echoing through the streets of New York, Beijing, Moscow, and every other major city on Earth. "We come in peace, bearing gifts of knowledge and prosperity. We have watched your world for many cycles and have seen your potential. The Empire wishes to extend its hand in friendship, to guide your species to a new era of enlightenment." The offer was met with cautious optimism. Earth's leaders, wary of the unknown, questioned the emissaries about their intentions. The Empire's representatives assured them that they sought only to uplift humanity, to share their advanced technology, and integrate Earth into a vast network of worlds united under the Empire's banner. In exchange, the Empire requested only one thing: a cultural exchange, a gesture of goodwill. They asked for a selection of humanity's brightest young minds to be sent to one of their core worlds, where they would be educated in the ways of the Empire and return to Earth as ambassadors, ready to share what they had learned. The proposal sparked intense debate. Some leaders saw it as an opportunity that could not be refused, a chance to catapult humanity into the future. Others were more skeptical, warning of the dangers of trusting a power so far beyond their understanding. But the allure of the Empire's promises proved too strong. After much deliberation, a decision was made. Earth would accept the Empire's offer. Within weeks, the selection process began. The brightest children from across the globe were chosen, their potential assessed through rigorous tests and evaluations. The children selected were celebrated as heroes, their faces plastered across news outlets and social media. They were the future, the ones who would bring back the knowledge that would transform Earth into a utopia. On the day of the departure, crowds gathered at spaceports across the world, watching as the chosen children were escorted aboard sleek, otherworldly shuttles. There were tears, of course, but they were tears of pride and hope. Parents waved goodbye, believing they were sending their children on a grand adventure, a journey that would secure a better future for all. As the shuttles ascended into the sky, the children's faces were broadcast on screens worldwide. They waved and smiled, excited for what lay ahead. But as the shuttles approached the massive Imperial ships waiting in orbit, a strange silence fell over the watching crowds. Something about the ships, their cold, unfeeling presence, began to unsettle the people of Earth. The unease grew as the ships, with their cargo of human children, silently turned and vanished into the void, leaving only the empty sky behind. For a time, the world waited eagerly for news. Reports were scarce, but what little information trickled back was optimistic. The children were said to be thriving in their new environment, learning at an accelerated pace and adapting well to life among the stars. But as weeks turned into months and then years, without any direct communication from the children themselves, doubts began to creep in. And then, one day, all contact with the Empire ceased. The emissaries had promised that the children would return within 5 years, but as the deadline approached, there was only silence. Earth's leaders tried in vain to re-establish communication, but their messages went unanswered. The once promised technology and knowledge never materialized. Anxiety turned to fear, and fear to panic as rumors spread of darker things, of experiments and disappearances, of children being taken to places from which they would never return. The hope that had once filled the hearts of humanity began to wither, replaced by a growing dread. The Galactic Empire, once seen as a beacon of progress, was now viewed with suspicion and fear, and as Earth waited in silent anticipation, the shadow of the Empire loomed ever larger, its true intentions still hidden, but its threat now unmistakably clear. Months had passed since the last communication from the Galactic Empire, and a heavy cloud of dread hung over Earth. The children, nearly 10,000 of Earth's brightest, had been gone for almost 3 years, with no direct word from them. The initial excitement and hope had long since evaporated, replaced by whispers of betrayal and loss. The world, once so united in the promise of a brighter future, was now fractured by fear and uncertainty. In the heart of Earth's largest cities, life continued as usual, but there was an underlying tension, a sense of something terrible lurking just beyond the horizon. Governments around the world were in disarray, scrambling to make sense of the silence. Diplomatic channels with the Empire were dead, and the once vibrant promises of technological exchange had turned into desperate pleas for information. The people of Earth demanded answers, but none were forthcoming. Then, without warning, a message appeared, a faint, garbled transmission picked up by a deep space listening post on the far side of the moon. The transmission was weak, barely more than a whisper against the cosmic background noise, but it was unmistakably human. It took days to clean up the signal, to piece together the fragments of audio and video that had been scattered across the stars. What emerged from the static was a message of horror and desperation, a broadcast that would shake the very foundations of human society. The message came from a group calling themselves the Children's Defenders, a clandestine resistance cell operating within the heart of the Galactic Empire. The face that appeared on screens across Earth was that of a gaunt, haunted man, one of the scientists who had originally accompanied the children on their journey. His eyes, once filled with excitement and hope, now held only fear and sorrow. "People of Earth," he began, his voice cracking with exhaustion and despair. "I am Dr. Elias Mercer, and I send this message to you as a warning of unimaginable horror. The Galactic Empire, they have lied to us. The children, our children, are not being educated or trained. They are being used, harvested." He paused, as if struggling to find the strength to continue. Behind him, flickering images showed the stark, sterile interiors of what looked like a laboratory. Rows of children lying motionless on cold metal tables, wires and tubes connected to their bodies. The sight was sickening, and across Earth, people recoiled in horror. "The Empire is facing a crisis," Dr. Mercer continued. "Their species is dying, their genetic code collapsing under the weight of centuries of manipulation. They believe, no, they know, that human DNA holds the key to their survival. Our children are being subjected to experiments, painful, invasive experiments designed to create a hybrid race, a new generation that can carry the Empire forward." His voice grew more frantic as he spoke, the words spilling out in a rush of terror. But the process is flawed. So many have died. 800,000 children gone, their bodies discarded like refuse after failed experiments. The Empire has no intention of returning them to us, no intention of sharing their knowledge or technology. They see us as nothing more than a resource to be exploited. Dr. Mercer's image flickered, the transmission breaking up as interference from the Empire's jamming efforts grew stronger. But before the screen went black, he delivered one final, desperate plea. Flee. Flee now, while you still can. The Empire, they will come for more. They will not stop until every last one of our children is theirs. You must leave Earth, find a place where they cannot follow. Warn the others, warn the galaxy. We are not alone in this. Flee and survive. The transmission cut out, leaving the world in stunned silence. Across the globe, parents clutched their remaining children, horror-stricken by the knowledge of what had been done to those they had sent away with such hope. The images from the broadcast were burned into the minds of everyone who saw them. The faces of the lost children haunting them, a terrible reminder of the trust that had been betrayed. Panic spread like wildfire. The governments of Earth, already struggling to maintain order, were overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the crisis. Protests erupted in cities worldwide, angry crowds demanding answers, demanding action. Conspiracy theories flourished, and rumors of further abductions sent waves of terror through the population. The fragile unity that had once held the world together disintegrated, replaced by chaos and fear. In the midst of this turmoil, the remnants of Earth's leadership came together in a desperate attempt to salvage the situation. A secret summit was held, deep within the bunkers of the United Nations, where the world's remaining powers debated their options. The consensus was grim. Earth could not stand against the might of the Galactic Empire. The technology gap was simply too vast. Any attempt at military resistance would be suicidal. Yet, the idea of simply waiting for the Empire to return, to take more of their children, was unthinkable. They had to act, but how? The debate raged on with no clear solution in sight. Meanwhile, in the shadows, the children's defenders were not idle. They had been preparing for this moment, gathering intelligence, building alliances, and formulating plans. They knew that Earth's survival depended on more than just desperate last-ditch efforts. They needed a plan, a way to escape the Empire's reach entirely. The answer came from an unexpected source, an ancient, forgotten piece of technology buried deep within the records of Earth's history. A relic from a time before the Empire's dominance, before humanity had even taken its first steps into the stars. It was a jump gate, an artificial wormhole capable of transporting ships across vast distances in an instant. The gate was old, and its location was perilous, situated at the very edge of the solar system in a region long abandoned by spacefarers. But it was their only hope. As the summit continued, the children's defenders quietly approached Earth's leaders with their plan. It was audacious, nearly suicidal, but it offered a glimmer of hope. They would initiate a mass exodus, evacuating as much of Earth's population as possible through the jump gate, while decoy fleets and false transmissions kept the Empire's attention elsewhere. It was a long shot, but it was the best chance they had to save humanity from complete annihilation. The decision was made. Preparations began in secret, with only the most trusted members of each government involved. The children's defenders worked tirelessly, coordinating with underground resistance cells and sympathetic factions across the world. Ships were retrofitted, supplies gathered, and evacuation routes planned. The operation, codenamed New Dawn, was set in motion. As the world teetered on the brink of collapse, one last message was broadcast across the planet, this time from Earth's leaders, urging the people to remain calm, to trust in the plan. But the truth was stark. There was little time, and even less hope. The Empire would not stay distracted for long, and when they returned, there would be no mercy. The children's defenders, their faces hidden behind masks, appeared in the closing moments of the broadcast, delivering the final chilling words of Dr. Mercer's message. Flee now, while you still can. The Empire is coming, and they will show no mercy. Flee and survive. And so the stage was set for the greatest gamble in human history, a desperate bid for survival against an enemy that had already claimed so many innocent lives. The revelation had come too late to save the lost children, but perhaps, just perhaps, it would be enough to save the rest of humanity. As the final preparations for Operation New Dawn were put into place, the world held its breath. The secret of the ancient jump gate, now fully operational for the first time in millennia, became humanity's last hope. Located in the Kuiper Belt, far beyond Pluto, the gate was a relic of a forgotten civilization, a massive ring half buried in the ice and debris of the outer solar system. Its purpose had long been a mystery, its creators unknown, but now it was Earth's only chance of escaping the Galactic Empire's wrath. The evacuation plan was as audacious as it was desperate. Earth's population, now fully aware of the impending danger, was gripped by a mix of fear and hope. Governments around the world had imposed martial law to maintain order, and massive transport ships, hastily retrofitted and repurposed from the remnants of Earth's space programs, were being prepared to carry millions of people through the gate. It was a logistical nightmare. There were far too few ships and far too many people, but the leaders of Operation New Dawn knew they had no other choice. The Children's Defenders, now leading the operation, worked tirelessly to coordinate the exodus. They had established a network of secret launch sites across the planet, hidden away from the Empire's prying eyes. These sites, often located in remote or underground locations, were the starting points for the evacuation. As the final hours approached, the tension in the air was palpable. The world's leaders had made their peace with the fact that not everyone would make it off the planet. It was a bitter truth, but they had no time for anything else. The plan hinged on a series of decoys designed to mislead the Empire's forces. Using the last of Earth's dwindling resources, the defenders had created a series of false signals and dummy fleets meant to draw the Empire's attention away from the real evacuation. These decoys were sent toward different sectors of space, mimicking the patterns of an escape attempt. The hope was that the Empire, distracted by these false leads, would not notice the true exodus until it was too late. On the ground, the scenes were both chaotic and heart-wrenching. Families were torn apart, as only a fraction of the population could be evacuated. The lottery system implemented by the governments was harsh, but it was the only way to decide who would go and who would stay. Those selected for evacuation were hurriedly loaded onto transport ships, while those left behind could only watch in despair. In the midst of this, the Children's Defenders made one final push. They broadcast a message across the world, urging those who were not selected to take shelter, to go underground and hide from the Empire's inevitable return. They promised that those who escaped would find a way to come back, to rescue those who were left behind. It was a promise made more out of hope than certainty, but it was the only comfort they could offer. As the evacuation ships began their journey to the jump gate, the Empire struck. They had discovered the decoy fleets, and although the ruse had bought Earth some time, it was not enough. The Empire ships, black monoliths of death, descended on the planet in force, targeting the launch sites and the remaining cities with merciless precision. The skies above Earth filled with fire as the Empire unleashed its wrath, determined to crush any resistance before it could escape. The evacuation ships raced toward the Kuiper Belt, their engines straining against the limits of human engineering. On board, the evacuees were packed tightly, fear and uncertainty etched on their faces. Many wept silently, mourning the loss of loved ones left behind, while others sat in stunned silence, their minds numb from the shock of it all. As the ships approached the ancient jump gate, the enormity of the structure became apparent. It was a ring of dark metal, miles in diameter, hovering in the void like a silent sentinel. Energy crackled across its surface as the gate powered up, its ancient mechanisms responding to the presence of the ships. This was the moment of truth. If the gate worked, it would carry them far beyond the reach of the Empire, to a place where they might rebuild. If it failed, they would be stranded in the cold depths of space, easy prey for the pursuing Imperial fleet. The first ship entered the gate, its hull shimmering as it was enveloped in a halo of energy. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then, with a flash of light, the ship vanished, leaving nothing but empty space behind. A cheer went up from the crews of the other ships as they followed, one by one, into the unknown. But the Empire was close behind. As the last of the evacuation ships prepared to enter the gate, the Empire's fleet arrived, their weapons charged and ready. The Children's Defenders, piloting the last ship in line, knew they had no time to lose. With a single command, they activated the gate's fail-safe mechanism. The ancient structure began to destabilize, the energy within it growing more chaotic by the second. It was a desperate gamble, but it was the only way to prevent the Empire from following them through. The last ship entered the gate just as the Empire's first shots were fired. The gate, overloaded with energy, collapsed in on itself, the explosion sending shockwaves through the surrounding space. The Empire's ships were caught in the blast, their sleek black hulls torn apart by the force of the collapse. The gate was destroyed, but so was the only path to safety. On the other side of the jump, the surviving evacuation ships emerged into the unknown. They had been transported to a region of space far beyond anything humanity had ever known, to a place untouched by the Empire's reach. The stars here were unfamiliar, the planets uncharted, but it was a place where they could start anew, a place where they could build a future free from the terror that had nearly destroyed them. The evacuees, exhausted and grief-stricken, looked out at the new world that lay before them. It was a harsh, untamed place, filled with dangers they could not yet comprehend. But it was also a place of hope, a blank slate on which they could write the next chapter of humanity's story. As the last of the evacuation ships settled into orbit around their new home, the leaders of the Children's Defenders gathered in the command center of the flagship. They knew their work was far from over. They had saved a remnant of humanity. But there were still billions left behind on Earth, at the mercy of the Empire. They vowed to find a way back, to continue the fight from the shadows if necessary. But for now, they had to focus on survival, on building a new society in this strange and distant corner of the galaxy. The message that had driven them to flee still echoed in their minds, a reminder of the cost of trust and the need for vigilance. As they looked out at the alien landscape below, they knew that the hardest battles were yet to come. But they also knew that they had a chance to create a future where their children could live free, a future where the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. The Exodus had been a success, but it was only the beginning. The first rays of the alien sun cast a dim golden light over the horizon of the new world, a planet the evacuees had tentatively named Haven. It was a fitting name, for this place represented humanity's last refuge, a chance to start anew after narrowly escaping the clutches of the Galactic Empire. But Haven was as much a challenge as it was a sanctuary. The planet, while teeming with life, was wild and untamed, its landscapes vast and varied, lush jungles, towering mountains, deep oceans, and barren deserts, all filled with creatures and ecosystems unlike anything Earth had ever seen. The surviving evacuees, just a fraction of Earth's population, had little time to mourn or reflect. Survival was now their primary concern. The evacuation ships, built for space travel, were not equipped for long-term habitation, and their supplies were limited. The leaders of the Children's Defenders knew that they needed to establish a permanent settlement quickly, or risk losing everything they had fought for. The first task was to find a suitable location for a base of operations. Reconnaissance drones, launched from the orbiting ships, scouted the planet's surface, searching for a place where humanity could take root. After days of surveying, a site was chosen, a large plateau near the equator, surrounded by natural defenses in the form of rugged cliffs and dense forests. The plateau had access to fresh water from nearby rivers, fertile soil for farming, and abundant wildlife that could be hunted for food. The landing was chaotic but orderly. The ships descended one by one, touching down on the plateau and unloading their precious cargo, the last remnants of Earth's civilization. The evacuees worked tirelessly to establish a foothold on their new world, setting up temporary shelters, medical facilities, and food distribution centers. The atmosphere was tense, but there was also a sense of determination, They had escaped the Empire, and now they had a chance to build something new, something better. But Haven was not without its dangers. The planet's native wildlife, while fascinating, was often hostile, and the environment itself posed numerous challenges. Violent storms swept across the landscape with little warning, and the planet's tectonic activity meant that earthquakes and volcanic eruptions were a constant threat. The early days were marked by loss, as the settlers struggled to adapt to their new surroundings. Accidents were common, and the harsh conditions took a toll on both body and spirit. Despite these hardships, the survivors pressed on. The children's defenders, now the de facto leaders of the new colony, focused on maintaining morale and ensuring that the community remained united. They implemented a system of shared responsibility where everyone, regardless of age or skill, contributed to the colony's survival. Engineers worked to adapt the technology brought from Earth to the new environment, constructing energy generators, water purification systems, and basic infrastructure. Scientists studied the planet's flora and fauna, searching for resources that could be used to sustain the colony. Farmers and hunters began cultivating the land and taming the wild. Over time, the temporary shelters gave way to more permanent structures. Homes were built from the local materials, stone, wood, and metal salvaged from the ships. A central hub, dubbed New Hope, was established at the heart of the plateau, where a governing council, composed of representatives from each group of survivors, met regularly to make decisions and plan for the future. Slowly but surely, a new society began to take shape. The settlers faced countless challenges, but they also found unexpected sources of strength. The diversity of their backgrounds, once a potential source of division, became one of their greatest assets. People from all walks of life, scientists, engineers, artists, laborers, and soldiers, came together to share their knowledge and skills. The colony became a melting pot of ideas and cultures, a place where innovation thrived and where the lessons of Earth's past were not forgotten. One of the most significant challenges was education. The leaders knew that for the colony to truly succeed, they needed to ensure that future generations were equipped with the knowledge and skills to continue their work. Schools were established in the early days, initially just small groups of children gathered around a teacher in the open air. But as the settlement grew, so did the schools. Libraries were created, filled with the digital archives salvaged from Earth, and new curricula were developed to include both the old knowledge of Earth and the new discoveries made on Haven. The memory of the lost children weighed heavily on the settlers. The massacre, the betrayal by the Galactic Empire, had left deep scars. The colony observed a day of remembrance each year, a solemn occasion where the survivors gathered to honor those who had been lost. It was a time of reflection, but also a time to renew their commitment to never let such a tragedy happen again. The children's defenders, many of whom had lost their own children to the Empire, took it upon themselves to ensure that the colony remained vigilant, always prepared for the possibility that the Empire might one day return. As the years passed, Haven began to flourish. The settlers explored further into the wilds, discovering new resources and expanding their territory. Trade routes were established between different settlements, and a sense of community and identity began to emerge. The people of Haven no longer saw themselves as refugees or survivors. They were pioneers, forging a new path in an uncharted land. But even as they built their new world, the shadow of the Galactic Empire loomed large. The children's defenders knew that the Empire might one day find them, that their escape had been a temporary reprieve, rather than a permanent victory. They worked in secret to prepare for that day, developing defensive technologies and training a new generation of warriors who would be ready to defend their home. Communication with Earth, however, was impossible. The jump gate had been destroyed, and the vast distances between star systems meant that there was no way to reach those who had been left behind. It was a heavy burden to bear, knowing that billions of their fellow humans remained under the Empire's control. But the leaders of Haven vowed that they would never forget their origins, never forget the world they had left behind. They would find a way to return, to free those who still suffered under the Empire's tyranny. In the meantime, they focused on building a society that was strong, resilient, and just. The colony's leaders emphasized the importance of democracy, equality, and the rule of law, principles that had been hard-won on Earth and were now the foundation of their new society. They encouraged innovation and exploration, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in this new world. Generations passed, and the colony grew into a thriving civilization. The people of Haven built cities and farms, schools and universities, and a network of communities that stretched across the planet. They developed new technologies, adapted to their environment, and became self-sufficient. They learned to live in harmony with the planet's native life, respecting the delicate balance of the ecosystems they had once feared. And always, they remembered, the story of their exodus, of the lost children, of the betrayal by the Galactic Empire, was passed down through the generations. It became a central part of their identity, a reminder of where they had come from and what they had overcome. The people of Haven lived with the knowledge that they were the guardians of a legacy, that their survival was not just for themselves, but for all of humanity. Finally, after decades of hard work and perseverance, the colony reached a point of stability and prosperity. New Hope, the central city, had grown into a vibrant hub of culture and commerce, with towering buildings, advanced technology, and a population that had swelled into the millions. The people of Haven had created something remarkable, a society that was free, fair, and thriving. But they knew that their journey was far from over. The leaders of Haven continued to search for ways to communicate with other worlds, to find allies in the galaxy, and to one day return to Earth. They had not forgotten the billions left behind, and they were determined to find a way to help them. The Children's Defenders, now an honored and respected group within the colony, continued to prepare for the day when the Empire might return. And so the people of Haven lived on, thriving in their new home, but always vigilant, always aware of the dangers that still lurked in the galaxy. They had escaped the nightmare of the Galactic Empire, but they knew that true freedom would only come when all of humanity was safe. The new beginning on Haven was just that, a beginning, a start of a new chapter in human history, one that would be written with the lessons of the past and the hopes for the future. The people of Haven looked to the stars, knowing that their story was far from over, and that the challenges ahead would be great. But they were ready. They had faced the darkness and survived, and now they would build a future where their children could live free, no longer under the shadow of fear,